Okay, good morning. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm Sunnyvale Mayor Larry Klein. Thanks for joining me again this week. Happy Bike to Wherever Day. So I start my day with my usual run with my dog Buddy, but I'll be out later today and this weekend on my bike. So enjoying the beautiful weather. This is the 62nd installment of my weekly virtual office hour address. And, a year ago, I converted my weekly coffee shop office hours into a live stream address and haven't missed a week since. People really say that they appreciate these weekly updates, hearing from their mayor. I'll continue to do this to the end of shelter in place and probably a lot longer. We've now reached 431 days since the March 16th, 2020 county health order started the whole shelter in place in an attempt to slow down the spread of COVID-19. A lot has happened over the last year, and something newsworthy seems to happen almost every day. But these virtual office hours are really great because they allow me to reset and kind of take stock of the last week. But it allows me to also give you some updates, answer some of your questions, and just provide some general words of encouragement. So, uh, I've slowly started to meet people for coffee, and I'll be heading to the coffee shop after today's office hours, so virtual office hours. But thank you for allowing me to continue to represent you and work for Sunnyvale during difficult times. I hope everyone's doing well, staying healthy, getting out, and enjoying the beautiful weather that we have. Please be safe and get your vaccination. It does make a difference, and California still continues to look much better as far as new people, getting COVID, and from that standpoint, that's the simplest and best thing that we can do between wearing your mask and of course getting your vaccine. So as I mentioned last month, I'll be cycling out my background art every week and just provide a highlights to some of our Sunnyvale artists. So today's piece is called Jupiter, and it's by Andrea Coutura, which I've shown you before. So Jupiter, if you want to purchase the art, please contact me, and I'll put you in contact directly with the artists themselves. So, and then just in general, as I said previously, continue to follow the county health orders. Do your part to slow and stop the spread of the virus. Washing your hands, not touching your face, reducing the number of people that you come in contact with. Uh, Maintain safe social distance when you're out. Continue to wear your mask where you think it's unsafe, and of course, get your vaccination when it's your time. So, let's go ahead and start talking about what's happened over the last uh, 2 weeks or so at the federal, state, county, and city level. So, last Monday, Sunnyvale public safety officers and several city council members met at Fire Station 5 in Moffett Park to honor and give a memorial service to the five Sunnyvale public safety officers who've lost their life in the line of duty since the beginning of our public safety. And it was good to honor the memory and mourn the loss and from a family standpoint. So we always have a few families show up, uh, but it was good to hear from some of the family members and hearing from a grandson of one of the fallen officers who now works in Sacramento. And it was good to hear he had been named after his grandfather. And it was very touching memorial service. And it's good to start having some of these in-person events, especially for something honoring people who gave their ultimate sacrifice in the protection of our community. And then, as far as last Monday, Governor Newsom was in Oakland, where he announced uh, what should be about a $75 billion surplus, uh, despite the pandemic issues. And so Governor Newsom proposed, $600 checks for middle-income residents, along with $500 payments to families with dependents. You know, California is due to receive about $26 billion in direct federal aid. And so Governor Newsom has done his about $100 billion package that he's dubbed the California Comeback Plan. And so, and throughout last week, he was proposing, you know, portions that will be part of last Friday's proposed budget to our legislature, and we'll see how quickly that those negotiations go and how things change. But and I'll talk about other things that the governor proposed throughout the week last week. Last Monday was also a big day from a federal standpoint because, you know, the U.S. FDA authorized Pfizer for use in adolescents from age 12 to 15. And so now, as it used to be 16 and older, now ages 12 and 15 years are now allowed to get the Pfizer vaccine. And I'll say that there are a lot of happy parents out there. You know, the county has had multiple events to focus on getting the 12 to 15-year-olds, as well as everyone else who hasn't received their vaccination yet, get vaccinated. So they've had, you know, boba events and I'll say sports events. So, you know, the 49ers and Sharks. So they're doing whatever they can to make it as easy as possible and encourage, you know, our youth to get vaccinated now that the FDA has approved that vaccine. And then last Monday and Tuesday evening, City Council spent about 5 hours each evening interviewing our board and commission members, and we, you know, every quarter we go through and have interviews for open positions, but our mid-year is when a lot of the terms end, whether or not it's a 4-year term or, you know, there's been a certain number of people that have resigned or left the city. So, you know, we had 36 applicants this time, which is quite a few more than what we have normally on a quarterly basis, and a lot of good residents with differing skills and fantastic backgrounds that applied. So, you know, it'll be a difficult decision, and that's one of the things that we'll be doing at next Tuesday's meeting is deciding, you know, what's the final list or who was actually chosen for our open positions on our boards and commissions. And then last Tuesday, California Governor Newsom proposed $12 billion for new funding for homelessness within the state. And so it was a mixture of several things, but mainly it was about almost $9 billion to expand the program to convert hotels and motels into housing, either transitionary housing or long-term housing. And so half that money would go towards creating housing where mental health and other behavioral services are provided. And I think that's the critical thing. But, you know, Project Home Key and Project Room Key that we had over the last year was a big success. You know, it's like it created rooms. So the conversion of hotel rooms into housing was on the order of about $150,000 a unit, which it's far cheaper than building housing from scratch when we're talking about, you know, affordable housing nonprofit developments within our city. It's on the order of about $650,000 a unit. So it is a lot cheaper to just do that conversion. And then the governor also proposed about $3.5 billion on new housing and, you know, rental support payments for families. So this is part of that additional income or the additional revenue that the state has, that revenue surplus, and trying to figure out, you know, ways to help those most in need within our state. So it still needs to get approval from a final budget standpoint from the legislature, but, you know, I think definitely that will be part of the final budget. And then last Tuesday, the Santa Clara Valley Water District proposed and kind of talked about its plans to raise rates 9.6% each year for the next 8 years, followed by an 8.7% jump in the rate in the following 2 years after that. And so that monthly rate would increase to equate approximately to $4.50 to $5 increase per month for customers, according to the water district. And these water rates do go in effect July 1st. Now, and the water district is doing some issue. It has some issues, of which one of which is purchasing water during a drought, which will become more and more difficult. But it's also, the big thing is completing maintenance and upgrades to its aging infrastructure, including, of course, Anderson Dam. The Anderson Reservoir is about, I think it's a 10-year project, costing $576 million. And so that was drained. Anderson Reservoir was drained earlier this year to allow for that seismic retrofit. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission concluded last year that the Anderson Dam, which is about 250 feet, which was built in 1950, was basically at great risk of collapse during a major earthquake. So from that standpoint, yes, it made sense. Of course, that maintenance and that cost of that maintenance means that rates go up in the for the next decade from a Valley water standpoint. And Sunnyvale's lucky because most of we get our water from two different sources, the SFPUC and Valley Water, and we can kind of play those water rates off against each other. And so the SFPUC hasn't raised its rates for several years, and again didn't do it this year, but they'll be doing it next year. And so it's dealing with those ongoing rate changes is one of the things that we try to do from a city, so that we're not hit by an immediate 9% raise or increase in rates on water in a given year. And then last Wednesday, the governor had a long press conference in Monterey. He announced $20 billion going towards education in his proposed budget. And so this is universal transition kindergarten for 4-year-olds. It's $4 billion in behavioral and mental health for children. It's after-school programs, and it's After School for All program was something that Governor Brown proposed, but it was only funded to about $500 million a year. And then this is proposing to extend that to $1 billion, up to $5 billion over the next 5 years. And that handles, universal preschool and after school programs. It's paying teachers more, and it's also, investing talents in teachers for our underserved communities. So it's about $3 billion for teacher preparedness. So, there's a lot of good things from that standpoint, and even making sure that it's more likely that children go to college. So the plan would also set up 529 college savings accounts, and that's basically $500 college savings accounts for about almost 4 million kids from low income families. And so that kind of sets them on that path of being able to go to college at the end of the day. So, this will be part of that negotiation from a state legislature standpoint of all the different items that can be part of having a surplus and maintaining that surplus from a state standpoint. And then it did come up as far as the masking, and on Wednesday the CDC announced it no longer recommends that fully vaccinated people wear their masks indoors or outdoors, and definitely the CDC and Biden administration have really faced a lot of pressure to ease mask restrictions on fully vaccinated people that are at least 2 weeks past that last dose. And so this new guidance basically says if you're indoor or outdoors, um, if you're fully vaccinated, activities there pose minimal risk, and so you don't need to wear a mask except if you're in correctional facilities or homeless shelters or on public transportation, on planes, on buses, on trains, other forms of whatever that public transportation is. You do need to wear a mask even if you're vaccinated. And so, from a state standpoint, and the governor, we'll talk about what the state said at the beginning of this week, but even last week when the CDC was saying that it was going to remove those guidelines, from a state standpoint, we were going to slow roll any new changes to the mask guidelines themselves. So, from that standpoint, the CDC, and this is kind of is giving new guidelines, and then it's up to the states to figure out how quickly they want to change that. So right now, California, those mask guidelines have not changed, and will be changing, ultimately mid-June. President Biden had his first press conference where, America will smile again, and took off his mask at the Oval Office, just to kind of signal that things are changing now that people are vaccinated. And then last Saturday was Hands on the Arts, and it went virtual again this year. So we had tickets that we sold for supply kits to do our 6 virtual at-home projects. And if you want to, create your own projects or buy your own materials, you were able to do that. But the ticket provided like a prepackaged kit so that you could do those different the different virtual Hands on the Arts projects, and also it provided that kind of an admission to the drive-through pickup event, and that was actually really good because there were drive-through performances. We had a magician, a bubble maker, a muralist who was there doing a Hands on the Art mural, some hula dancers. So it was really great to see. I dropped by for a little while. It was good to see the smiling faces of so many kids and parents in their cars, clapping for the performers. It was a great day, and I think it was also good for some of the city staff, and who hadn't seen each other through Zoom and team meetings for the last year. So it was good to get city staff there together for the first time, and the performers themselves, I heard they were really happy to actually be able to perform live for children, for parents. So it was good. So it was a car caravan. Every few minutes they would send 5 cards through to the next station, and it was stations set up all around the community center. So hopefully next year, Hands on the Arts will be fully in person, but I think that virtual component is really good because for those people who can't make it on that Saturday mid-May, they have a chance to come, anytime after that date and do those projects. So I'll be posting the Hands on the Art YouTube video. So if you want to do any of those projects at home, that you have that ability. And then on Monday of this week, California state officials announced that they will continue requiring people who are fully vaccinated against COVID-19 to continue to wear masks in public, both indoors and crowded outdoor settings, at least until June 15th. As opposed to rather than adopting the CDC's guidelines immediately, state officials basically want to allow the state to keep focusing on getting more Californians vaccinated before those masks actually come off. So that was really important. Dr. Galley said, on June 15th, we will finally follow those CDC guidelines, and that additional month will allow us to, continue to prepare for delivering vaccines and making sure that everyone who wants to get vaccinated can get vaccinated. It's on June 15th, we will be moving out, at least as far as all indication is right now, out of our color-coded tiered system and moving back to some sort of new normal, and we'll see, what direction the state has at that point in mid-June. But we are starting to see things start to go back to normal from that standpoint. And from a California standpoint, nearly 50% of those age 16 and over have been fully vaccinated, and about almost 61% have received their first dose. So things are rapidly opening up from a state standpoint, and as we get more and more people vaccinated, things are looking better overall. And then on Tuesday, the state announced that Santa Clara County and Santa Cruz counties would be moving into the yellow tier. So this would match what San Mateo and San Francisco went to last year. And so on Wednesday, of course, the county at 12 a.m. Did move to the yellow tier. And this, isn't that much of a change from the orange tier. The biggest thing are, museums are open with really no restrictions on the number of people. There are still kind of restrictions on wearing masks and such, but bars not serving food can open up to 25%, and most bars do serve food, so there weren't that many that weren't meeting that restriction anyway. So, but it was good to get into that other, into the yellow tier. There were certain restrictions that were based upon the amount of seating and as well as a number of people. So certain, like restaurants or certain indoor activities were restricted to, 25% or 50% and a maximum of 100 or 200 people. Most of those 100 or 200 people restrictions have now gone away, and it's whatever the previous percentage restriction was. So all that is set at a state level, and the county is just following what the state yellow tier restrictions are. And then on Wednesday of this week, I spoke at Sustainapalooza. It was the first annual event put on by Sustainable Silicon Valley. And it was mainly, Sunnyvale was there to talk about food. And so I, of course, talked about the Mayor's Restaurant Project. I surpassed 200 restaurants a few weeks ago, and a new website is up and available. So you can see, I've had, lots of feedback from residents. So if you go to eatsunnyvale.com, you can see the full list of restaurants. There's also a map. You have kind of a ongoing photo blog of food and what food came from what restaurant, and then of course links to my reviews. So definitely take a look at that if you get a chance. And then yesterday, Thursday, was our all-day budget workshop. So our budget this year was about 1,100 pages, and we switch every year. One year is an operational budget, and the next year is a project budget focus. This year was focused on projects. There's a general overview for the whole, what the city is, what our status is from an operational standpoint every year, and then focusing on either operational or projects. And of course, revenue was down, and that's mainly reduced sales tax, reduced transient occupancy tax, TOT, and that's for hotels because not as many people are traveling. Those are the main hits to our revenue. And from that standpoint, we're very happy that we received the American Rescue Plan, which is about $29.5 million over the next 2 years. If that wasn't there, we would be taking drastic measures this year to cut, services, to cut city staff, and that to me has been, one of the good things, advocating at a federal level, making sure that, all the cities got money. We didn't get that last May. It was only cities over $250,000 in the states. So it was actually very positive to get that funding, because that allowed us to unfreeze certain positions. We went through the budget, unfroze positions. It brought back certain service levels, like outdoor activities, some of our camps, a lot of the events All those will start happening over the next year. Council did a little more cutting than what the city manager had proposed and city staff had proposed. We did cut tree trimming for another year. So, last year we lowered water usage in all of our parks by 10% for the next 2 years. So last year and this year. Last year we cut tree trimming for a year, and we decided to do that again this year. That gives a little more flexibility. Hopefully our sales revenues will be up at the end of this year, and things will kind of continue to pick up from that standpoint. We also talked a little bit about our utilities. I talked previously about our utility rates for water, and so everybody should have been receiving should be receiving notification from the city sometime over the next week or so about what our proposed water rates, wastewater, and solid waste increases are. So water is increasing 1.5%, and we talked about the 9.6% Silicon Valley water increase that's happening. Last year we made sure that that water rate was 0%. From a wastewater standpoint, we're increasing by 4%, and solid waste we're increasing by also 4%. And all the utility rates are completely pass-through costs based upon operation and maintenance of what the city provides to its residents. So that's one of the things about the wastewater treatment, where we have a 20-year project for the wastewater treatment plant, like $40 million to redo that infrastructure. So that's one of the things why rates continue to go up there. And I think in general, in talking to what other cities are doing, we're actually keeping rates and what our service, our service reserves, making sure that doesn't have a large increase in 1 year. So we don't see, what San Jose is proposing, I think is a 16% increase in their garbage rates this year. So definitely it's making sure when you start from a budgetary standpoint, the city by charter has a 10-year balanced budget. So we need to look at, make estimates for the next 10 years. But we also do a 20-year plan. And between the two of those, it really means that, we fiscally have, we're very forward thinking. And that because of that, we any change is spread over multiple years, and we see the dips in kind of our reserves. We shoot to have maintain appropriate reserves from a city standpoint, so that when there's a downturn in the economy that's unexpected, we have enough money. And that's one of the things that we dipped into last year, to make sure that we're ready to deal with any of those reserves. And during the last downturn in 2007 and 8, we actually used some of those reserves to speed up project implementation, because what that ultimately did is, because construction companies, development companies weren't building during that downturn, they were giving us bids on about 70 cents on the dollar of what we thought we were going to be spending over the next few years, and we were able to pull in those projects. Not so with this downturn. Construction costs are still going. There's still lots of housing and office space still being built. So definitely, we decided not to do that, and especially with the unknowns as far as our revenue is concerned. So from that standpoint, it was a long day. Started at 8:30. We went until just after 5 yesterday, but I think it's a productive day. It's our third of 3 big all-day workshops. Our first one is the strategic session in January. Our second one is the budget issue and study issue meeting workshop in February. And then this is the third one to kind of give final direction to staff on the budget that we'll be approving in June. And there were multiple things that we would have liked to add. There were other study issues that I really wanted to add, but all those are just continuing to cut into our reserves. Hopefully, seeing how our revenues will hopefully move up in the next year, we'll actually be able to kick off more of those study issues as well as some of these services that we cut back on. And then let's go ahead and get to the weekly numbers. Nationally, cases and hospitalizations continue to fall, looking a little bit better around the world, but still definitely there are areas with issues. From a new COVID case standpoint nationally, we're now at 32.8 million cases. That's another 200,000 in the last week, and we've surpassed 279 million vaccines administered, which means about 60% of our population has had at least one dose. And then as far as deaths are concerned, we're about 585,000 deaths nationally, about 4,000 new deaths in the last week due to COVID. And then from a California standpoint, we're at 3.7 million positive cases. We're only about 1,100, 1,200 new cases a day now. It's one of the lowest rates in the nation, so that's been very positive. And but we also have had 62,000 fatalities. So it's there's still people that are being affected by COVID, still people being hospitalized and dying from COVID. And then from California standpoint, we've had 35 million vaccines administered, up another 2 million from last week. And then from a per state standpoint of how we stand, we dropped a little bit. We were number 11 last week in residents with at least one dose, and we dropped to number 13. So that's not the best thing, but at least as far as states with residents fully vaccinated, we moved up from 26 to 23 with about 39% of our residents that are fully vaccinated. And then as far as the county is concerned, things still look good. We're still about 119,000 people that have been shown to have the virus, have been, positive case rates. And then we've had 2,016 deaths, another 20 in the last week due to COVID-19. We have about 61 people still hospitalized because of that. But on a positive, a very positive standpoint, in the last week we had a big press release that over 1 million people have now been fully vaccinated. So that's about 58% of our residents, 12 years and older. So now we've increased that age, that lower age floor to 12 years and older. And so that's about, over 1 million are fully vaccinated and 1.2 million have at least one dose, which is about 72% of the county. So we're really doing really well from a county standpoint. From a population that's vaccinated and fully vaccinated, we're one of the best in the state. So kudos to everyone who's got their shot, and it really has made a difference as far as that's concerned. As far as me, I continue to do a lot of advocating. At the county level, we continue to have discussions with county health and the county supervisors on a weekly basis. As far as testing, the mobile county pop-up van is back in Murphy Park this Monday, so they're there on the second and fourth Monday, and they'll be there from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. So if you need to get tested, go to sccfreetest.org. And then as far as vaccinations, I've been working to have several pop-up sites within our city, and so that will be happening. But definitely we have drop-in sites. We have within the city the El Camino Health, which I talked about previously at 1300 Maude Avenue, right near Mary, has partnered with LinkedIn to have vaccinations there, and they're there every day. You can do it by appointment, but today they're doing drop-in appointments until 4:30 p.m. So you can just go there today until 4:30 p.m. and get your shot. And there's drop-in appointments around the county on a daily basis. So if you want to either register for a specific time frame or just do a drop-in, you can go to sccfreevax.org and get a lot more information as far as that's concerned. There are lots of healthcare clinics around the county that are providing, vaccinations by appointment, or you can just do one of the drop-in events. And some of them you get boba or, get other free things at. So let me go ahead and announce some upcoming events. As I mentioned earlier, today and tomorrow are Bike to Wherever Day. It used to be Bike to Work Day. And so you can still sign up. You can still get your goodie bag for biking and go to one of the many Energizer stations. They've changed things a little bit. It used to be only certain locations, and mainly in the mornings and some in the afternoons. It's kind of spread out around the county over the next 2 days. So if you want to sign up and if you want to get the full list of Energizer stations, you can go to bikesiliconvalley.org and sign up there, pledge to ride. I think you're entered into some contests to get additional goodie bags and other things, but take a look at that. And then our next council meeting is next Tuesday, the 25th, and we'll be recommending the final study, basically what we're going to be studying for the Moffett Park specific plan. And so that environmental impact report, that EIR. And so from an EIR standpoint, we set the maximums to evaluate office, residential, retail, and staff is recommending an additional 10 million square feet over what's already approved at Moffett Park. For office, R&D, and industrial, it's recommending 18 and a half, so 18,500 housing units and about 500,000 square feet of commercial or retail space. So, and this is the important thing, as we've had multiple outreach meetings, creating communities. So, Moffett Park has always been mainly, office space with a little bit of retail. If we're going to be adding housing out there, it's making sure that these are walkable communities with, housing, with, a shopping store, basically grocery store, restaurants, things to make sure that these are, neighborhoods, communities, and not just office space and housing right next to each other. So I think we'll see where that goes, but this is just defining maximums that are then studied and figuring out what the mitigations need to be, and then from an EIR analysis, and then at a later date when that EIR would come back, we would, based upon that analysis, council would set what the new Moffett Park maximums would be. So it's a beginning of a process, or part of the way through a much longer process. One of the other things that we'll be doing at that meeting is receiving the findings on the post-construction report, and whether or not we retain the existing configuration of the Maud Avenue class 2 bike lanes between Borregas and Fair Oaks Avenue. So this is, what we did about almost 2 years ago now, is take away the parking area along that area and create bike lanes. And so it's to evaluate how that went and ultimately make a decision whether or not we do any other changes as far as that's concerned. Okay, let's go ahead and get to our weekly questions. Selena asked, when are traffic lights on Sunnyvale Avenue, Washington Avenue, and Evelyn between Sunnyvale Avenue and Mary going to return to manual? And so this was basically put in place last year, especially when the CDC guidelines were people, should not touch common surfaces. So there was a lot of questions about COVID being spread on contact with different materials. And so hitting that push button at the in the downtown where there's a lot of pedestrian traffic. Didn't really make sense. So we automated all those crossing walks so that people don't have to push those buttons. Uh, that will be in place at least until June 15th and possibly longer. City staff is currently evaluating that. From my standpoint, it's I still go to the majority of the crosswalk signals and use my elbow, but it has made it a little bit easier for residents to know that they don't have to actually hit that button and have those signs up. That being said, it does change traffic patterns a little bit when you're forcing cars to stop when there aren't actual pedestrians. So it is kind of a balance from that standpoint. But staff is evaluating that, and that'll be decided on somewhere past June 15th. Whitney asked, the pedestrian bridge near the Fair Oaks Bridge has a sign that says it's permanently closed, but it appears that there are no other routes for pedestrian. Is another option available? So, and definitely we've talked previously about the Fair Oaks Bridge going over the Caltrain tracks, and ultimately that is creating a separated pedestrian area as well as bike lanes on the bridge. And it's been under construction now for about 6 months. It'll be finished sometime this fall, so sometime at the end of this year that will be completing. But as far as I did know previously, the pedestrian bridge that's next to Home Depot was supposed to stay open until that project was done. Caltrain actually came to the city and said that they wanted to close the PED bridge early because of construction and electrification, and so that's ongoing. And so what we did we then went to the construction company, and we were able to open a pedestrian path and the bike lanes on the Fair Oaks Bridge. And I think the biggest issue was signage. That I did run by there, and when they closed the pedestrian bridge, they didn't say, "Oh, the actual Fair Oaks Bridge now has a pedestrian crossing that wasn't there before." So signage has been, as far as I know, they put up new signage this week to kind of point people to the right location. But for those that didn't know, you can now walk or easily bike over the Fair Oaks Bridge that wasn't there previously. So hopefully that has been fixed. I haven't had a chance to run by the old pedestrian bridge that was there. John asked what is happening with Macy's. So fences have gone up. They're doing kind of the final internal demolition, ripping out things that can conceivably be recycled better, internal wiring and such, before the actual demolition of Macy's. That should be happening sometime in the next month. Kimberly asked, I'm curious why Sierra Park splash pad is working, but Seven Seas and others are not working. What is the rationale behind this? So I talked to the city manager. As I talked about last week, we definitely had opened up that splash pad early, and they were going to ultimately close the other splash pads. But of course, moving into the yellow tier, that means that fountains and splash pads can be open. So sometime over the next week or two, those areas within our park should be reopening for kids to be out in the warm weather and enjoying the water features at that standpoint. So it's good that we finally transitioned into that yellow tier. We weren't sure a week ago whether or not that transition would be done, but our numbers stayed solid, and that allowed us to do that. Jason asked, are you going to restart your in-person office hours? So I've been getting that question, for the last few months. And I have been meeting over the last few weeks after I was vaccinated. I have started to meet people for coffee. I will be downtown at Bean Scene from about just after this meeting ends, after the virtual office hours ends, from 10:30 to 11:30. So you can drop by and say hi, but I'll start be doing that intermittently after the Friday office, the virtual office hours. Wendy and Ann asked, what is happening with the old Osh sites? I don't like Home Depot or Lowe's as much, and hoping that Osh comes back. So I have good news. Just announced earlier this week that Osh, on the Osh website, that the Osh, at least one Osh location, the one at Hollenbeck and Homestead, Osh announced that they would be reopening, and it's no longer, of course, Orchard Supply hardware. It's becoming Outdoor Supply hardware. So they're going to be changing what they're providing slightly, but at least on their website, they've actually said that that's coming. So we will have some sort of Osh at the Hollenbeck and Homestead location. The other location, still there's the I think that's been, the developers have put that on hold, but we're lucky to be one of the new Osh locations. I checked with city staff. There hasn't been any permitting, so they still haven't started, any refurbishment or are doing those permits to the city yet. But that being said, because they shut it down, conceivably it's just recreating, putting in the shelving again, putting in whatever the new store is going to look like. So they're rebranding slightly. Osh was owned, was purchased by Lowe's, and then Lowe's closed down all the old Osh stores, but they're bringing some of them back as more outdoor supply store. So we'll see how that goes. Donna asked, will there be music on Murphy Avenue this summer? And that actually started on Wednesday, 2 days ago, March 20th. So we now have a DJ playing background music Wednesday and Thursday nights for the next about 2 months. So until the end of July. And so that's, there's still no dancing. Social distancing will be enforced, although conceivably that might change a little bit once we get past June 15th. But the Wednesday night and Saturday night jazz, they will actually be returning in August. So you have that to look forward to. And then, let's see. And of course, Josh asked, will there be an Art and Wine Festival this year? That's being planned for October 2nd and 3rd. And so, the Chamber and the Downtown Association is working together to figure out what that's going to look like. But things are starting to open up. Definitely, things will be, people will be back out and, seeing each other. I think people really miss that social interaction. Let's see if I have any other questions. I think that's it for this week. So let's go ahead and wrap up. Thanks for joining me again this week. I'm proud of Sunnyvale's response to the pandemic. Life continues to be difficult, but things are really getting better. It's new issues come up, but your actions, how you deal with these issues, really does make a difference. So continue to wear your mask when you're out, and especially if you're around people that you don't know or have been vaccinated or not. Get your vaccination. It's easy. It's simple. It's just dropping in, and you don't need appointments or fighting for an appointment time slot like I did when I got my vaccination over a month and a half ago or so. But continue to assist others. Build community. I think that's one of the big things we can take from the pandemic is it's so important to build that community with your neighbors. Provide support where you can. I'm really proud of Sunnyvale residents pulling together to help others in need, sharing what they have. So if you're out on a walk, wave, say hello to people. People miss that social interaction. We're finally starting to see it again. Sunnyvale will emerge from this as a stronger community. We're in this together. We'll get through this together. Thanks for listening. To everyone, please, of course, wear your mask, get your vaccination, and stay safe. So have a great week. Enjoy our weekend. Take care. Goodbye.